It's been a long summer, and
Yeah,
we're
yeah, we're
starting
excited.
school now.
School starts next week. We're ready to go.
Yeah, summer is always, at least I kind of think of it as like it's really important. It's like probably the one of the most important parts of a season is just that summer training aspect of things. It gives the guys and gals, time to reset a little bit mentally, and then obviously kind of really get in the miles, and kind of builds a team out for the season. So definitely kind of looking forward to talking about all that stuff. But first and foremost, kind of really want to pick your brain on just some things here. Um, how'd you get involved in running? That's like always a huge question for I think all runners in general. But like, how did you get involved?
Yeah, so I started running cross country in seventh grade. Um, I grew up playing just about every sport: baseball, basketball, football, soccer, whatever was in season, I was playing it. And then I got to going into middle school, I knew I was going to play basketball in the winter, baseball in the spring, and didn't really have anything going on in the fall. So my parents were like, what are you doing in the fall? And the choices were football and cross country. And I was like, I've done the football thing. I liked it, but I was on the smaller side, so I decided to give, cross country an opportunity and really liked it. Immediately enjoyed it, and then didn't really start running track until I was in high school. I'm from Alabama, and then I went to a really small private school, and I got in high school and realized we didn't have a track team, and so that was a big problem. So
Yeah.
my freshman year, I sort of just ran as an individual. We had no team, no coach, just went out there and entered races. And then going into my sophomore year, I had a friend that wanted to be a sprinter. He had already done like AAU track and everything, and we sort of started the track team. We, as sophomores, we got a meeting with the president of the school and was like, "Look, we're interested in starting a track team." We had a really good athletic program, like football, basketball. We were really, really good, like constantly winning championships. And so there was a lot of interest. And, that was kind of our pitch is like we could, if we get enough people interested, can we make this happen? And he was kind of like, yeah, if you get like 20 or 30 people interested, we'll actually look into it. And that whole you know, school year, we were just trying to get as many people that we thought would be interested. And we got up to like 30, 35 people. And so we kind of were like, hey, there's interest. And so they went out and found us a coach, and, you know, we had a track team that spring.
That is awesome. That's crazy. Like I could only imagine start recruiting people. Like, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
Wow, that's the first. I've never heard of a story like that one. That's cool. Did you ever think about like coaching back then, like at a young age, or like by the time you became kind of a senior, junior at all? Did it ever cross your
Um,
mind?
I think a little bit. I mean, we were never very good on the distance side. We had a lot of good athletes in terms of like sprinters, jumpers, throwers, but distance we weren't very good in cross country. I was kind of I always ran by myself and, trained alone. I didn't really know what I was doing either. And so I think it was always kind of like in the back of my mind, like I would enjoy, having other people to run with and potentially, training because I didn't know anything. Like I just kind of did, whatever I thought was good for the day was kind of my training. My junior year, I did get a coach. We had a couple coaches like when I was in middle school, but they were just kind of parents that didn't really know a lot about running. But really, not until I got to college did I really invest in, what it meant to be a runner. I was lucky enough to be able to go to college to run at UT Martin, and I was there for 5 years, and that's where I met a lot of, I mean, I had a lot of good teammates that, were, on the elite level. And so I had some good coaches, and that's when I was really like, okay, this is something I could see myself doing, after college, like in terms of coaching. So
Yeah, because I similar. I mean, I never had a team that was not there, but I started in seventh grade too, and I feel like even the longer you're in the sport at such a young age, I mean, there's people doing it in elementary school, but you kind of learn a lot, and you obviously you see you're at the meets and you see other athletes, and you make those friends and those connections with coaches and whatnot, and um, similar though. I feel like my senior year, I was basically coaching myself and a miler and we were just, hey, I think we're doing 6 miles today, and but it kind of opened my eyes too because I really wanted to learn more about the sport and because there's just so much more to running than just okay go out and run, and I think that's like a common misconception among uh,
absolutely, yeah.
the general public is just hey yeah you guys just got and run. It's like well no there's a lot to it there's and even when you get into like tactics and race courses and how to kind of set yourself up for the best possible outcome is always out there too. um so you talk about going to college and being surrounded by athletes and coaches. Do you think you kind of like your coaching philosophy now, do you think it kind of resembles some of that, or did you like take pieces from that and kind of molded it into your own?
In terms of training, absolutely. A lot of my philosophies on training and racing comes from my college teammates and college coaches. I had two really good college coaches. One of them, so the coach that recruited me, he left after my sophomore year, and then the coach I had my junior year through, well, the assistant coach was promoted to the head coach, and he had a lot of knowledge on training. He ran at University of Washington, and then was an assistant at Baylor and Florida State. So a lot of my philosophies come from him. And then I had I had actually three graduate assistant coaches that were very influential as well. One of them ran at Eastern Kentucky. Another one ran at Eastern Illinois, and then one I'm still really good friends with. He was actually a teammate and then was a graduate assistant for a year after. So, yeah, a lot of, what I believe in terms of training and racing comes from, those days in college.
And you look at kind of where you're at right now, Greer Middle College, definitely a winning mindset. It's a winning tradition that you have going over there. Do you think, like coming into the role, did you have expectations of having a high caliber team like year in and year out, or like how did that kind of come to play?
Yeah, so I should probably start before I came to GMC because so I was in Tennessee and I was there for 5 years, like I mentioned, and right in the middle of those 5 years was COVID. So there was a full year where there was no races. Everything was shut down. And my freshman year, I redshirted. I was injured all the time. I was way over my head. So I redshirted cross country and track my freshman year. So I got to my 5th year and I had an extra season of eligibility. And I already got, I was already enrolled in my master's classes at UT Martin, and I was going to finish that May. And so I knew I wanted to go somewhere else. and run. So I got in the transfer portal, and if you know anything about the transfer portal, anybody can contact you. Um, where any school in the country can reach out and say, hey, we're interested. And Anderson University was one of the schools that reached out, Coach Eagle. And so I came on a visit and was sort of sold. I really liked what they were doing. At the time, Anderson is a really, really high caliber D2 program, but at the time, their men's team had never made D2 nationals. And so that was kind of the big selling point is, you come here, we got this young talent, which is they're still there. They're still really, really good. And you come here, help us make nationals for the first time. And I was sold. So I'd never even been to South Carolina before, but I was like, I'm gonna go one more year and, see what happens. So I moved to Anderson, start running cross country, and then it was kind of already discussed with me and Coach Eagle, like I was going to run cross country, and then after that, I was going to transition to a coaching role. So we make it, we make nationals. It was awesome. One of the best experiences of my athletic career for sure. And then we get 23rd, which was incredible because we were projected to get like 30th or something. And then I immediately go into coaching. Like I'm retired, I'm done. It's all coaching. And so it's kind of funny because like it was a D2 festival year. So with that, it's really cool. They push everything back 2 weeks. So all the fall sports have their championship in the same city on the same weekend. So it was like cross country, football, volleyball. What's the other one? Like I think not tennis. There's another sport, but they're all like staying. It was in Seattle. They're all staying in the same hotel, and it was like an Olympic type experience. And that was December 2nd, the race. And then the very next week, like I'm on a bike coaching with some people that I was in charge of like the middle distance squad, like 800, 1,500 guys. So yeah, that was kind of how I got into coaching.
Wow. That is that's pretty cool. That is a pretty cool story. Um I'm curious, do you tell your runners like this kind of stuff? Like do they know this about you or
Most of them do, yeah. Most of them.
yeah. Yeah, cuz like, that's one thing I always kind of regret not asking my high school coach. She was sponsored by Adidas at one point in her career, and never asked her like too many details of like she went to UF and then went pro for like marathon stuff, and yeah, I never asked, but like that's so curious because now it's like, man, if I was in high school, I'd be asking you 20,000 questions of how this thing all kind of came about. Um, Okay, so Anderson, Anderson is actually, because I'm kind of new to South Carolina as well, and all I hear about is Anderson University, Anderson, Anderson, and then we talked to Grayson Gibbons, and he's heading over there this year, um, and he had really good stuff to say about it as well, and then yeah, kind of just doing some research. I'm like, wow, okay, yeah, this is a legit school around here. Like, definitely got to keep an eye on. Um, so yeah, you how does GMC work out then? How does that all
Yeah,
happen?
that's an even better story. So my second year coaching at Anderson, one of the freshmen is Jake Dentler, son of our head coach Angie Dentler. So that fall, so I was mainly like coaching people for track. Like, in the fall, everybody's running cross country. There's no different training. Like everybody's doing the same training. So I wasn't really like coaching anybody. I was just kind of overseeing what, Coach Eagle's plan was and everything. And so Jake, there were actually two former GMC students on the team, Jake Dentler and Adam Trusty. Adam Trusty was one of the 800, 1500 guys that I was coaching in track. And so Jake just kind of randomly says one day, "Hey, my high school program, they could, use some help. They need some training." And I didn't really think much of it. I was like, "Okay, sure." At the time I've only been coaching like three or four athletes. Like I'm not experienced at all. Like I just wanted more opportunities to coach people. And so didn't really go anywhere for a couple weeks, and then one day Angie, reached out and said, "Hey, we're really looking for somebody. We'd love if you can just write us some workouts for track season." So I'm like, "Sure, yeah." I didn't really know anything about GMC. Had no idea they were, you know, how good of a program they were, anything like that. And so I just started writing workouts. Had never met the kids. It was I'm just kind of the guy behind a computer for the first 2 or 3 months. And then I think like middle of March, I was like, I need to at least, go to a race or go watch the kids run. Like I'd kind of met them through like video chats when, the team would have meetings and stuff, but never met anybody in person. And so I start showing up and, immediately felt connected. They were very supportive of me and, wanted me to kind of be a full-time coach for them. And, I was like, yeah, this is fun. this is, it was fun because going from, just coaching three or four guys to having 60, 70 kids, and you start seeing them improve and run fast, and it's like, yeah, I can see myself doing this for sure. But it was also intimidating because I was all college. Like college was all I knew. I had not been like up until that point, I had not been to a high school cross country or track meet since I was in high school. Like it wasn't on my radar at all. Like I was a fish out of water that first track season. I was just learning as much as I could because I mean, you can't take college training and transition it to high school. You really have to, understand what, it's just different. I mean, different events, different age group. And so it was a big learning experience, but it was a lot of fun and continues to be a blast.
Yeah, that's got to be crazy intimidating to go from, 3, 5 athletes to 60 right then and there. I can only imagine, let alone, I mean, even a smaller team of like, 30 or 40. But yeah, that is a crazy jump. So you get there, obviously the kids kind of know you from afar. This state title kind of mentality each year, is that something that was kind of like, did you feel pressure to make that happen right away? Because it's almost like, I don't want to say it's like, it is, I don't want to say it's expected, but did you feel like it was expected to perform really well every year?
Um, in some ways, yeah. I mean, we've I think or 10 or 11 state championships total before I even got there. And so I knew like there's high expectations. The kids have high expectations. The parents want their kids to do well. Our administration is super supportive. Like our athletic director, you know, it's cool because, there's no football at GMC. So cross country is the premier sport. And so that was, you know, really refreshing, honestly, because I'd always been a part of a program where we're kind of on the rise. Like we hadn't really had a lot of success. It was more so rebuilding and, trying to be the first to do something. So going into GMC where it's just so much tradition and so many good runners that have, went through the program and, historic, talk about historic coaches. I mean, Coach Smith, I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. So yeah, there was a little bit of pressure. But I think I just had to, be myself and, not not really. I mean, the kids already expect to run well, so there's nothing I had to do differently. I walked into an incredible culture. Coach Dentler, she's the CEO. Like she's the one that's cultivated this culture over the past really 10 years. I'm just kind of tweaking training and, maybe trying to take us to a next level in terms of being a regional and national caliber team.
Yeah, and you mentioned that. It, curious. It is curious. Because you look at the team you have right now, and obviously best team in the state. But arguably, I mean, you can compete. You go to Nike Cross Nationals or anything, or even Running Lane. Um, I guess to pivot real quick, because yeah, I'm curious. Is that something that is kind of on your guys' mind, or are you guys kind of like, yeah, what is on your mind? I could only assume the team is it's so stacked. Like, why not go after something like that?
Yeah, it's been on our mind for a while. Um, Last year, our boys team were all in on NXR, and because the state meet got moved back, we didn't have an opportunity. I think our state meet was Thursday and NXR was Saturday. So there was no way that we could have done both. So it was pretty heartbreaking, honestly, when we realized that we weren't going to be able to get to compete. Because we firmly believe that we would have been a top five team at NXR. So it's something that we've been thinking about for a while, and we're really planning on going for it this year. Also, our girls team. So when I got to GMC, our boys were kind of all the talk. They had won. I mean, they were the number one team the year before, and they had already had a lot of success, and they had won like 4 or 5 straight. The girls were coming off 2 years where they didn't win, and so they were very, very hungry and motivated. And our girls team has just taken a huge step forward. I mean, you look at our track season this past spring. I mean, we had the most girls out of anybody in the 3200 break 13 minutes, and then we had 5 girls break 12 minutes in the 32. So there's not many programs, that have more than, 5 or 6 girls that run the 3200 all spring, and we had 10 under 13. So our girls are hungry, and we feel very, very confident on both sides that we can compete at the regional and national level.
Yeah, I have a question for you. Did it ever cross your mind, um, whether it was you or any of the administration, to I don't want to say not run states, but not run states and go to NXR with a full team? And the only reason I ask you that is because Florida, so that's where I'm from, Florida, they messed up brutally this upcoming season, and they scheduled the state meet on the same day as NXR.
I saw that.
Yeah, and Bell Jesuit, they're one of the top teams in Florida, and it's like, I don't know how you make that decision of do you skip or do you go to national? Like, 'cause, I mean, you have a good shot at nationals, but it's the state meet, and I don't know how. if you could even do that. But was there any thought about that, or no?
Um, I think some of the kids, it's tough though. Like, we have I mean, we're at six state championships in a row. And there was talk maybe early in the year of like maybe resting people for state and try to win it with like our 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 runners. But Southside Christian was too good. Like, Coach Gibbons had those guys ready, and Grayson was leading the charge, and there was no way we could have won, doing that. So I think probably um, towards mid October we realized like it's just not going to work. Like we're just going to go all out at state and just kind of call it. So, but it's tough. I mean, it was really heartbreaking because we had some seniors that was their main goal was, I want to run at NXR and, see if we can make a run at nationals. So hopefully we have some redemption this year.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's such a weird predicament to be in. And obviously last year was just with the hurricanes and all that jazz, and that's why I mentioned Florida this year now too. It's like um, it's tough. I can only imagine. But you are bringing a really good squad back this year. Uh, Something I want to kind of ask you on, and it's kind of a big topic for discussion, and it really goes to the depth of track seasons nowadays. And I've mentioned it before on the podcast to where soccer, club soccer has always been year round. Basketball, AAU's kind of always been year round. Cross country or just running in general has really almost turned into a year round sport. Um, with cross country going deep, I mean, running lane is in December. If you want to do cross country running lane, and then if you have some guys that want to kind of knock into the indoor stuff, obviously you're taking up those winter months, and then you have track season, and with Nike and Adidas and the list goes on of how many meets go deep into June, late June. Um, do you ever tell your guys like maybe let's not do some of these kind of deep season track meets and kind of focus on cross country, or kind of what's your mindset on the whole thing?
I think it definitely depends on the individual. And we had athletes this past track season that ran up until NC Runners Elite, which was I think it was the very last day of May. Um, and then we had athletes that went to New Balance Indoor Nationals in Boston. And then we'll probably do the same again next year. We want to compete against the best. That's our mindset. Like, um, we we want to find the best races we can get into and see where we stack up. So I think there is a certain point in time where it's like, okay, we need to shut it down. I think this year Nike and New Balance was like maybe June 20th or something. Um, I would have been totally okay if our guys, wanted to go to that. We even had a couple girls that were trying to qualify. That's another thing. There are some meets out there that anybody can go. Running lane. We sent I think 7 kids, and it was an awesome experience. Like I went. It was incredible environment. It's set up to run a fast time, and I mean that's great. Like I think the more races you can get into with high caliber fields, the better you're going to be, especially in track. Meets like running lane, you're in the mile and you're going to have 20 people that have the same time as you, like within 2 to 3 seconds. So learning how to compete in those type of races, you're only going to get better. So I guess to answer your question, like, yeah, there is a cutoff, but we haven't really found that yet. Like if we had people that qualified for, U20 nationals, like I would be for it. I think there's a line of like trying to get the most out of like the season you're in and then, focusing on the next season. Like for New Balance and Nike specifically, like if the race was June 20th, we would probably just push their start time for cross country back a little bit. Like instead of opening up at, eye opener August 30th, they may open up at like Starlight or something. And really that's not a big deal to me at all because November is our focus. Every cross country season we're trying to be at our best in November, and every track season we're trying to be at our best in May. So with the kids that ran indoor, we had kind of a, December, January, February, March, we're kind of building up, and then we took a little bit of a break after indoor, and then built back up to the state track meet. So there's ways to do it, and also in college, there's 3 seasons. You're gonna have, depending on where you go, your conference meet in cross country is going to be something you're really striving for. If you have a chance to run at nationals in November, that's going to be something you're peaking for. And then indoor, you're going to have a conference meet in late February, and then you're going to have another one in the middle of May. So I think getting used to it is definitely important.
Yeah, and so I guess to kind of follow up on that, um, so when it comes to like track season, let's just stick with outdoor for right now. Um, do you push the start date then for some of those guys that like that may have ambition like Jackson or or do you not? Like if they have any ambition to be like, hey, I want to do New Balance outdoors this season, um, do you have them race in March at all, or you still are you kind of sticking with the plan because obviously states is still high priority. Um, but if they come to you and say like, hey, I want to do this, like, do you push it back at all or no?
Um, you mean training or racing?
Training.
We wouldn't push back training. I think what we would do is not race as often early in the season. Instead of, you know, I mean, really, we kind of did that this past track season. Like he ran like New Balance Nationals indoor. That was like March 15th around there, and then he took 2 weeks off of racing, and then really April was kind of the main month of racing. So um, we would probably just race a little bit less. And, one of the things with our training is we don't overdo it. We don't run a lot of like really, really hard workouts that often. So we're able to train probably a month or two longer than maybe some others just because we're not crushing it every week. So, you mean, and it's the same way in cross country. Like most people are going to start in June and go all the way through November. So in track, I mean, if you're, say, starting workouts in December, I mean, really there's no reason you shouldn't be able to make it until June if you're, pacing yourself properly in training. So I think the more important thing is not overdoing it early on. Really, the way I think about it is like June, July, and August are the same as December or January, February, March in track. So that's kind of how I correlate it.
Gotcha. It's the whole thing is just it's so much with all these outdoor meets kind of just they're just it feels like they get longer every year, which I don't blame them. I mean, like you said, there's opportunity for these athletes to run at these high caliber meets and kind of have the experience. Running lane is has really taken a storm. I mean, ever since COVID, when they kind of did cross country and that was kind of like the alternative to Nike and Foot Locker, and because Foot Locker was having some weird years over in there during COVID with the different sponsors, and finally I think it's kind of getting back to the prestige Foot Locker nationals and whatnot. Um, so coming into this year, or even every year, I think there's new challenges, maybe similar goals, but different goals as well. When you look at the team this year, though, um, what are there any challenges that you see like right off the get go that you kind of need to overcome, or what are some of the like the big goals that you have for this team? Obviously, States is going to be number one, or even Nike. But do you have any kind of do you see any challenges so far in training where things need to more depth or anything?
Um, I wouldn't say it's a challenge at this point, but our main goal is just staying healthy. We're pretty confident that if we can, stay healthy and just be consistent, that we're going to be where we need to be in November. So really, like right now, we just started workouts like last week, really. We're still, I mean, we're coming off a lot of just mileage, just easy running, long runs. We've thrown in some hills and some strides. So, I mean, we're really early on in the season. Staying healthy is the main thing. And then, I mean, honestly, with the amount, I mean, we have a lot of kids that are very, very motivated and driven. And so the biggest challenge is holding them back. More so than like, you got to run more and run faster. It's holding them back because they're ready to go. Like if we had a race on Saturday, they would be hyped up and ready. So just trying to, keep them, kind of patient. I mean, it's hard because we've got a long way to go, and they know that. Like there's a lot of work to be done, and so we're just trying to keep it tame until probably we'll go to Eye Opener, and then the next big one will be Adidas September 20th. So, but even then, like September 20th, that's 2 months until we're trying to peak. So that's the biggest challenge is making sure nobody, there's kind of the old saying we don't want to be too fit too soon. So that's kind of the stage we're at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm one of those I'm one of those kids right now. I'm like fired up about the season starting. I just want to go, get out there, get content and see all the results and performances out there too. So no, I see what they mean. I see um something I want to kind of touch up on too. I like I said, I grew up in Florida, ran Florida cross country 7th through 12th. Moved up to North Carolina, kind of, you know, felt the scene out there a bit too, and then made the move to South Carolina. And I always kind of judge, um, times kind of based off of Florida. And so, especially this track season, I was always like, I was like, man, like it's only like five girls that have broke 11 and the 32, but in Florida there's like 10 or 12. Okay, like let's like kind of see what's going on. And then before you know it, it was like girls left and right just having all these great performances, and then on the guy side, you had I think 149 in the 8 from Caleb Burrows, and then some guys that were running pretty low fours in the 16, and you had guys that were breaking 9 or getting close to breaking 9. From your time here in South Carolina, have you seen that growth over the sport, and have you like noticed the times are getting quicker to really compete it to win a state meet?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been in the state too long, but I definitely have. I mean, there's a lot of good individual performances. This past track season, there was, a lot of times people ran that were like, yeah, that could be competitive just about anywhere. So it's definitely unique where we're at right now. I think we're starting to close the gap with a lot of other states. And really, I think it's kind of everywhere. I mean, it's really a trickle down effect from, the professional ranks down to college, down to high school. Right now, college runners are training like professional runners, and high school runners are training like college runners. So everything is just getting faster each year. It's times now are not even going to be impressive in 5 or 10 years from now. Like it's just going to continue to get faster and faster. So um, we try to keep that in perspective a little bit. Running fast times are great, but really competing and winning races are what we're striving to do. And one of the things that we haven't seen in South Carolina, at least I haven't since I've been here, is kind of a team that can compete against the top schools in the region. You know, what's what's unique about being in the upstate Greenville is you can be one of the best in the state, but if you go 2 hours north on I-85, you're in the Charlotte metro area and you can just be, you know, just another team. And then you go 2 hours south on I-85 and you're in Atlanta and there's even more competition. So we really try to keep that in perspective of, we want to compete against the best teams around us. And that was, one of the things we talked about at our team camp a few weeks ago is, we want to compete against and beat the teams within a 4 hour radius of us. We've kind of had a lot of success in the state, but we want to, keep pushing the envelope. And one of the things I remind our guys, especially, is when they go to college, there's the state lines fade away. There's no, I was the best guy in South Carolina or whatever. It's you're competing against the whole country, and even international competition you're competing against. So we keep that in perspective very much.
Yeah, you mentioned, the times that are, fast now, they have 5, 10 years, they're just going to be obsolete. It's crazy because, I mean, it's like we just saw, what, a 16-year-old run 142 at,
Yep, made the
at
world
USA is
team.
like,
Yeah,
made the world team. Like, holy crap. Who would have thought that ever? Because it is so funny because that record was like, that was just being like a knocking on the door for a couple of years here. You had a couple kids that were running like, it just was like right there, but then to just blow it out of the water with 142 is, yeah, I think, yeah, he beat his record by, yeah, 3 seconds. He ran like 145. Yeah, it's cool. It really is cool. Again, I hate to put like pressure on a team ever, but it's like, yeah, you do look at your guys and it's like, well, there's like three of you guys that can, sub 15 this year. It's definitely high expectations and not just on yourselves, but I think even as like the state almost kind of has high hopes for you guys as well to perform and kind of represent the state as a whole. A couple more things I just really want to go over. Um, One was creating a schedule. I know you mentioned you're going to go to Adidas and obviously eye opener as well. Do you kind of have like do you have like the same schedule every year? Like going to the same meets, or do you try to mix it up, or like what's your kind of mindset and developing a schedule for? Because every team is different, but obviously I don't want to say there's limitations to what you could do because I think you guys can compete at a high level pretty much anywhere you guys go. Um, but does that kind of play into a factor of like what the schedule is going to be for the next year, like who's on the team and whatnot, or do you kind of have it like already set in stone?
yeah, we definitely factor in the team and what we think we're capable of, and what kind of meets we want to go to. So for me, I like to start at the end and work backwards. We know state, we're gonna have that date circled. This year we know we're going to want to take both teams to NXR, and then we kind of just work backwards from there. In Greenville County, the county championship is always a really, really big meet for us. So we want to, that's first weekend in November. We want to make sure we're ready for that one. We know we're going to have to run qualifiers. We know we're going to have to run region. Um, so that pretty much takes care of the, championship season. And then we kind of fill in, okay, obviously we're going to go to Coach's Classic, Starlight is one that, we want to go to, eye opener. And then it kind of leaves us with a couple of meets that we can travel to. We try to do at least one or two travel meets a season. And so this year, Adidas in Cary and then Virginia Showcase is going to be our two travel meets. And we went to Virginia last year, and it was phenomenal. Honestly, it was by accident that we even went because we were originally going to go to Great American, and then because of Hurricane Helene, we weren't able to go. And so Virginia was kind of a last minute addition to the schedule, but it worked out great. So, yeah, I think just having that November blocked off, knowing, okay, these are the meets we're for sure going to, this is where we want to peak, and then kind of filling in the gaps with travel meets and then, local meets.
Yeah, no, that's that I mean that's honestly a great way of thinking about it. Um I'm curious your take on this. Um Regionals, like as a meet itself, means absolutely nothing when it comes to like going to states or anything like that. Obviously you gotta go through state quals. Um would you just eliminate regionals as a whole, or would you just want to continue to keep it like if you had any say with the league, or to even make it like as if like if you win regionals, you have an automatic bid to states, something like that. I mean, I just thought of that on my top of my head, but
Yeah. For me personally, I don't get excited for regionals or region because, like you said, it really doesn't mean a whole lot. But it is important for our school and, our administration a little bit because we want to be region champs. In most sports, being your region champ is what gets you into the playoffs, and that's a pretty big deal. So we're gonna run at region. We may not run our top runners. We may have our top runners pace one of the JV runners. We may do a workout. It's it's kind of a workout type meet. It's not something where we're gonna have to really we're not gonna taper for it or anything. We're just gonna kind of train through it and do what we need to do. But it it is important for our school, I think. So we're gonna keep going.
yeah,
And
no, I mean,
in
it's
track, it's actually very competitive. There's some schools in our region that have really, really strong track teams. So, I mean, really, this track season, we did not think we were going to win our region. So, um, it really just depends on, the comp, and it could change. There's no way. Next year it could be a totally different scenario. They're constantly changing the qualification system. So we're still gonna keep showing up.
yeah, no, I mean, you have to, you obviously have to, but it's just it's to me, it just doesn't make any sense. But you take it like that. You take it as do some pacing duties and get work on the 5, 6, 7 guys to help them out. Because in Florida, we have a conference meet and we have districts. You have to finish in like the top six to go into regionals, and then you have to finish in the top six to go to state. And that's how you find the 24 or so teams that are going to states. And so when I came to South Carolina, I was like, yeah, regions, like, what is the point of this? And, I've asked some coaches too, and it's like, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. It's just kind of there. But it is bragging rights, so I get that. It's funny though because I literally just thought of that off the top of my head of just yeah, make it like an automatic bid or something. You don't have to do
That would be
state
great.
calls,
That
you
would be
know.
awesome.
Yeah, you take a week off before state. I mean, I don't know, it could
We would love
help or could
that.
hinder. Yeah, hey, submit that. I'll submit that. um, Last kind of question I really want to go over is rankings. When you kind of look at obviously you can see the state rankings as a team and you can kind of pick from there, but obviously you guys are looking more region based, with the surrounding states and obviously some of the other ones that are out there. Do you as a coach talk about rankings to your team, or do they bring it up to you like, hey coach, like we're here, they kind of look at us here, like, or do you guys just not really talk about where you guys are kind of in like the South region at all?
Um, we don't really look at it a ton. I think we're aware of who are the teams to beat, but when you're looking at rankings at some of these out of state teams, it's so hard to really know in cross country, where you stack up. I mean, the courses are so different. You know, you never know how amped up people were for a certain meet. You never know what their training looks like. They could be peaking way too early. That's the thing. Going back and really doing a deep dive into NXR results, like it's really a toss up every year of who's going to be in those top few spots. So we believe that if we're healthy and we're ready, that we can compete against anybody. But it's definitely, I think in track season, it's something we look at for sure. I mean, we want to see where we stack up in, the 16 and the 32 compared to, especially in the state. Like we want to know. I mean, that's the best predictor of how a cross country team is going to look in the fall is how did they run in track? What were their 1600 times? What were their 3200 times? I mean, I'm always looking at that kind of stuff. But in terms of like the coaches talking about it, we really don't. We're really focused on what we're doing, and we're we're very process oriented in terms of our goals. Like we don't really have a lot of outcome based goals. Like everything we do is like, okay, what do we collectively need to do each day to be successful? It's kind of funny because like our girls team was second at the state meet for 3A, and basically the whole season they didn't even know they were ranked that high. Like we didn't tell them. Like there was no need. Like we identified, okay, these are the events we really need to focus on, and we didn't really talk about where we were ranked. I think we might have mentioned it the week before, but everybody was just so laser focused on doing their job and making sure they're in the best position going into it that at the end of the day it was just about executing, and that's really what we do on before every meet. Like we don't go into meets like thinking, all right, we gotta let's go win this meet. It's more like, okay, what does each individual need to do to execute? And everything is in cross country, everything is centered around the team. Like what you're our number 5 runner. Where do you need to be at the mile in order to finish top 40 or top 30, wherever you need to be for us to have our best day? And to be honest, like we don't even really talk about winning meets. Like it's not something where we're in the huddle before the meet and we're like, all right, let's go win this meet. Like let's go do this. It's more about like what do you need to do? Like what are you thinking when the gun goes off? What are you thinking at the mile? Like what is your execution? And one of the things we do is visualize. We we really try to paint a picture of what the race is going to look like for our kids. And, we tell them like, it's going to be chaos. It's going to be, 300 people trying to get into a, 10-yard area, and you're going to have to find a way to get your spot, and then you're going to have to calm down, settle into, your rhythm, and then look for your teammates and get to that second or get to that mile and then start racing. It's really a game of like staying mentally composed and having some emotional control when it comes to some of these big cross country meets. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's
No, no, no,
that's
no.
our mindset.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I won't mention the team, but like I've been trying to tell an administration like track is so important to cross country, and you because it kind of can predict what that season could look like. I think yeah, the mile, but I think you kind of see it with the 32 as well. Obviously just longer distance, and but the speed of course with the mile too, and um, it's a good way to kind of, it doesn't tell the whole story, but it's definitely it's definitely a good way to kind of see what kind of team you have going into to summer training or even in cross for the season as a whole. But coach, I appreciate you coming on. I genuinely love talking to coaches and picking their brains. I got a few more kind of lined up. I think everyone's going to be excited to continue to hear from, and I always get kind of notes here and there, and coaches watching coaches videos and student athletes even saying like, hey, like this coach was on, is really good, it was different perspective, never knew that. um, so yeah, I appreciate you coming on, and definitely wish the team the best of luck. Like I said, I don't want to put any pressure or high expectations, but I think you guys, as a whole, the whole state is kind of obviously looking at you guys, and excited to see what you can do. But hey, they're also coming for you. I'm sure nobody wants to get second place, so they're definitely probably trying to dethrone you guys a little bit there too. So wish you guys the best of luck, and definitely keep in touch during the season.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate all that you're doing for the sport. It's awesome.
Appreciate it, coach.